You didn't find this message, it found you, not through the randomness of an algorithm, but through the quiet magnetism of divine timing. Because this is not just a video, it is a spiritual appointment. It is a moment of recognition. And if something inside you just leaned forward, if your breath caught for a second or your heart whispered, "Wait, this is for me," it is, you were meant to be here. You were meant to hear this. Not later, not someday. Now, you've been sensing it. Haven't you, that strange shift in the air? A feeling that can't be explained by logic, but refuses to leave you alone. You're more alert lately, more reflective, more aware that something is rising inside of you, even as the world around you hasn't quite caught on. And that's because you've entered a threshold moment. The old you is no longer sustainable. The new you is no longer a theory. You're crossing from preparation into purpose. And no, it's not loud. It's not explosive. It's not dramatic, but it's real. Quietly, undeniably real. This message is not for everyone. It's not meant to go viral. It's meant to go inward, into the hearts of those who have carried sacred callings in silence, into the souls of those who feel too awake for the world they are in, into the spirits of those who have cried tears no one saw and made decisions no one clapped for. This is for the chosen ones, the ones marked before they had language for it, the ones born with ancient assignments coded into their bones, the ones who kept walking even when they didn't know where the path was leading. If you feel this message stirring something in you, don't just watch, participate. Comment 77 below. Let that number be your anchor, your signal, your way of saying, "I know this is me." And if this message meets you in a place that matters, if it reaches into the dark corners you rarely let anyone see, consider leaving a super thanks, not for me, but for you, for this sacred process you've honored without applause, for the spiritual labor no one else has witnessed. Your support isn't a transaction, it's a declaration. I see myself now, and I am worth investing in. Now take a breath, get still. Something is about to be revealed, not just in these words, but within you. You're not here by chance. You're here because it's time. You are not forgotten, you are being forged. There are seasons where it feels like God has gone quiet, where heaven stops answering, and you begin to wonder if you were ever really chosen at all. You look around, and others seem to be soaring while you're still in survival mode. You've prayed, fasted, waited, worked, and still the doors didn't open. Still, the silence lingered, and maybe part of you even started to believe that you were overlooked, passed over, forgotten. But the truth is, you were never forgotten. You were being forged. You were being placed into the fires of transformation, not to destroy you, but to solidify you. What you felt as delay was actually design, because what you carry isn't average, and anything carrying sacred weight must go through sacred pressure. God doesn't rush his masterpieces, he refines them, slowly, intentionally, thoroughly. Look back. The isolation, the disappointment, the stripping away, it wasn't punishment. It was purification. You weren't just being protected from what wasn't for you. You were being protected for what was. And that takes time. That takes heat. That takes a willingness to be misunderstood while you're being reshaped. You thought you were waiting on something to begin, but in truth, something extraordinary was already underway inside you. You were learning how to stand alone, how to breathe without applause, how to hold peace in rooms that tried to steal your voice. You were learning the rhythm of resilience and the language of obedience. You were being forged into someone who could hold divine purpose without cracking under pressure. Because the elevation that's coming won't just require your gifts. It will demand your integrity, your clarity, your spiritual stamina. And that can't be microwaved. It has to be earned in private, long before it's visible in public. That's why the delay felt so personal, because it was. God wasn't punishing you. He was preparing you. And if you're still here after everything you've endured, it's because the fire didn't burn you. It built you. You weren't forgotten. You were being trusted with more than you knew. The silence was never empty. It was sacred preparation. We've been conditioned to fear silence, to fill the stillness with noise, motion, distraction, anything to avoid the echo of our own becoming. But in the spiritual realm, silence is not absence. Silence is sacred. And if you've been in a silent season, I want to tell you with certainty, it was never empty. It was holy ground. You see, when God is about to do something lasting, he doesn't shout. He whispers. And not into crowds, but into caves, into hidden places, into hearts that have learned how to hear him even when the world has gone still. If you've walked through nights where the heavens seemed shut, where prayers went unanswered, where the path disappeared beneath your feet, it wasn't because you were lost. It was because you were being calibrated. Silence taught you what success never could. It taught you to trust without evidence, to believe without clarity, to move without noise. And that kind of inner authority doesn't come from affirmations or motivational speeches. It comes from walking with God in the dark and realizing he never left your side. In silence, your ego is silenced too. That's where false identities fall away. That's where borrowed dreams crumble. That's where your soul sheds everything it was never meant to carry. And it hurts, oh it hurts, but what's left is pure, it's true, it's yours. Don't rush to escape the quiet. Don't despise the stillness, because stillness is where strength is born. Stillness is where the soil softens enough for truth to take root. You weren't being ignored, you were being informed. Heaven was downloading instructions into your spirit that noise would have distorted. The silence was your sanctuary. And when the moment comes, and it's coming, when everything starts to shift, you'll look back and realize the silence was not a delay. It was an announcement. You just needed to be still enough to hear it. You were hidden so you could be revealed right. There is a difference between being unseen and being hidden. One wounds your ego, the other protects your essence. And make no mistake, you weren't overlooked. You were intentionally concealed, not to deprive you of the spotlight, but to shield you from misalignment. Because your calling is too rare, too weighty, too holy to be exposed before it is ready. What God placed inside of you wasn't meant for mass consumption. It was meant for appointed impact. That's why you've never fit the mold. That's why your journey has felt offbeat, non-linear, upside down. Because God was writing a story through your life that the world didn't have language for yet. And sometimes, the greatest evidence of your destiny is how long it took to unfold. You weren't hiding, you were being hidden by divine hands. And in that hiddenness, your roots grew deep. Your motives were purified, your focus was sharpened. You learned to carry truth without arrogance and power without noise. You learned that being seen is not the same as being understood, and you stopped craving both. Now the season is changing. The doors that once stayed shut are beginning to shift. But this time, you won't walk through them needing validation. You'll walk through them as evidence. You're not showing up to be discovered, you're showing up because you've discovered yourself. And the people who couldn't recognize you before, they weren't blind, they just weren't ready. Let them talk. Let them wonder where you came from. You didn't rise through popularity, you rose through process. And when heaven does the revealing, no one can deny it. You were hidden for a reason. And now that the reason has matured, the revealing will be unmistakable. The room will adjust. You no longer need to shrink. For too long, you've made yourself smaller so others could feel bigger. You've walked into rooms and scanned them for permission to be bold, to be brilliant, to be whole. But not anymore. That season is over. The energy has shifted. And the message is clear. You no longer have to shrink to fit into places you were meant to transform. You've outgrown your old habits of self-diminishment. You've unlearned the reflex to apologize for your presence before you even speak. You no longer need to soften your voice just to make others comfortable with your clarity. That's not confidence. That's survival. And the version of you that God is revealing now doesn't live in survival anymore. It lives in sovereignty. There will be rooms that still feel unfamiliar. There will be people who try to pull you back into the box they once built for you, but you are not required to return to what you've outlived. When you walk into a space fully aware of who you are, the atmosphere will shift before you even open your mouth, not because you demand it, but because truth makes an impact simply by existing. You are not arrogant for knowing your worth. You are not intimidating because of your light. You are clarity embodied, and clarity always disrupts confusion. That's why some people flinch when you speak. That's why old friends may distance themselves. It's not that you've changed for the worse. It's that you've changed beyond their old frame of reference. And that's okay. You weren't meant to be understood by everyone. You were meant to be anchored, not explained. This is the season where your energy enters before your name is even spoken, where your peace becomes a presence, where your silence holds more gravity than your performance ever did. You are no longer asking rooms if it's okay to be you. You walk in like you belong, not because you're trying to take space, but because you are space. And that kind of authority, it can't be taught. It's earned through fire, through breaking, through becoming. So the next time you walk into a room and feel resistance, remember, you're not there to conform, you're there to command, not through dominance, but through divine frequency. The room will adjust. You no longer have to, you're not proving, you're becoming. There comes a time in the journey when the striving ends, when the desperate need to prove your worth evaporates, not because the world finally approved of you, but because you stopped needing them to. That's the shift we rarely talk about. The inner graduation. The moment when your identity is no longer in the hands of outcomes, titles, or applause. You're no longer fighting to prove, you're simply becoming. Becoming is a sacred process. It's slow, subtle, often invisible to the outside world, but inside it feels like tectonic plates are shifting. It's not that you don't care anymore, it's that your source of value has relocated. You've learned that proving is performative, but becoming is prophetic. Proving is about visibility, becoming is about alignment, and alignment always outlasts approval. Think of all the times you overextended just to be seen. All the moments you swallowed your truth to fit into places you didn't belong. You gave your voice to rooms that only ever echoed back their own noise. But even in that, you were learning the cost of compromise, learning the ache of inauthenticity, and most importantly, learning what your soul sounds like when it whispers, "This is not who I am." You're not in that place anymore. You've crossed into a new dimension of self-recognition. One where your actions are no longer reactive, they are rooted. One where your presence doesn't ask for permission, it radiates clarity. You're becoming someone who no longer chases alignment. You are alignment. And that shift changes everything. How you walk, how you speak, what you tolerate, what you no longer explain. Because once you realize you were never supposed to fit in, you stop shrinking to fit. Once you realize your voice carries purpose, you stop handing it to those who only want volume, not depth. And once you realize that you were chosen for a reason, you stop living like an audition. So stop trying to prove you're worthy of the calling. Just walk in it. Let your life echo your truth. Let your energy speak louder than your explanations. And when they ask what happened, smile gently and say, "I didn't prove anything, I just became." The shift has begun, you can feel it. There's a subtle current beneath your daily life now. A soft but unrelenting pull towards something you can't yet name, but you know it's real. It's the shift. The moment the caterpillar no longer fits its cocoon. The moment the soul begins to outgrow the limitations of logic. The shift has begun, and you can feel it. You feel it in your restlessness, in your no longer being able to tolerate what you once endured. You feel it in your sudden clarity, in the boundaries you're now enforcing, even if no one understands. You feel it in the way certain things just don't vibrate with your frequency anymore. Relationships, conversations, habits. It's not judgment, it's evolution. There's a deep intelligence in your spirit, one that recognizes timing long before your eyes see it. You may not know what's next, but you know this is over. The old way of surviving, the old way of second-guessing, the old way of betraying yourself to keep peace with people who were never meant to carry your calling. That's done. What's coming doesn't require force. It requires faith, quiet, rooted, unshakable faith, because everything is being rearranged now, not for convenience, but for clarity. And yes, it feels disorienting. Yes, some days will feel like loss, but what you're losing was never meant to last. What you're shedding is not your identity, it's your armor, and you no longer need it. God is moving pieces on your behalf. People you haven't met are being stirred to open doors. Conversations are being whispered in rooms you haven't entered. Don't doubt the stillness. It's not stagnation, it's calibration. The orchestra is tuning before the symphony begins. And you are the melody it's preparing for. Trust what you feel. Trust the way your intuition keeps growing louder. Trust the peace that follows hard decisions. That's not coincidence. That's confirmation. The shift has begun, and this time you're not chasing it, you're becoming it. You are the evidence. You've spent your life waiting for a sign, a signal, a moment that would confirm that all the pain, all the waiting, all the effort wasn't in vain. But here's the truth: you are the sign, you are the evidence, not just of survival but of sacred transformation. You're not just chosen in theory. You're the living, breathing embodiment of what it means to be called, crushed, and then crowned by grace. You didn't just make it through, you became something through it. Something resilient, something radiant, something real. You no longer need someone to tell you who you are. Your presence speaks that now, your peace speaks. Your walk, your silence, your clarity, it all speaks. And for those who once overlooked you, this isn't your moment of revenge. It's your moment of revelation. Because what's coming will not require you to shout. It will simply require you to stand, fully, unapologetically, authentically. The old story, the one where you had to beg to be seen, where you had to hustle to be loved, where you had to hide to be safe, that story is over. And what's rising now is not a performance. It's a prophecy fulfilled. The you that once questioned if you were worthy is now living proof that you always were. So breathe. You don't have to explain how you got here. You don't have to justify what stayed behind. You don't even have to announce what's next. God is doing that for you. The evidence is in your energy, in your peace, in your alignment. In the way, everything is now clicking into place without your effort. And for those still on their way, still in the fire, still in the silence, hold on. Because you too are becoming evidence. Every hidden sacrifice, every quiet decision, every unseen moment of courage, it's all part of the unfolding. And when your time comes, you won't have to prove a thing. You'll walk in, and the room will recognize what heaven always knew.